How's it going, everybody? My name is just Jared, but you can just call me Jared. We're talking about an interesting title today that coincidentally has an interesting title. I imagine the original creator of this game was, asked by a family member or something, "Hey man, what's the game you're making about?" And he responded with, "Well, it doesn't have an official title yet, but it's got like swords and magic and stuff in it." And he just stuck with that. Swords and Magic and Stuff is an indie title currently in early access that I had on my wish list for a couple months before the devs working on the game kindly sent me a key to check out what the game has to offer and to explore their new Farm and Forge update, which added tons of new content, including a huge new area, farming, cooking, crafting, over 500 new items and loot. Yes, loot, we'll get to that, but let me give you a short intro of the game so you know what it's all about. Swords and Magic and Stuff is an adventure exploration game that you can play solo or in online co-op. You get to name and create your character and jump into a world of fantasy, secrets, tons of quests and NPCs to meet, loot and treasure to plunder, mysteries to solve, and enemies to slay. This game is 100% focused around exploration, exploring the two very big locations, Azura Island and the recently added farmlands. That is the main gameplay loop, what you'll be doing all the time, and with that, this game has zero hand-holding. There's so little hand-holding that you can accidentally skip the entire tutorial island that you start out on if you're not paying attention. This isn't by accident. The game is developed in a way that it literally tells you almost nothing. You just start the game, get to the main island, then start exploring and doing stuff, and you'll eventually pick up on the game's features on your own. No hand-holding doesn't mean the game is hard, mind you. It's meant to be a casual game to chill out in and explore. In my almost 30 hours in the game, I only died once, and that's because I walked away from my PC for a second to grab a drink and didn't pause the game and was killed by a rat. There is a main story going on, but the game doesn't really tell you its main story or feed you plot points directly. It's more built into books you can find and read, as well as a few characters' dialogue. Your character is meant to be a hero, but you're not the main character of the overarching story. There's your intro. Now let's talk about the loot, the items, the super light RPG mechanics. We'll talk about how the game utilizes itemization and character classes or lack thereof. Then I'll give you my personal thoughts and opinions on the game and whether or not you should think about picking it up. Swords and Magic and Stuff has no character classes. It has no character leveling system. You don't learn spells or abilities, at least not yet. It's a classless game. You're able to create your character, be whoever you want to be, and play however you want to play without ever needing to make significant choices or worrying about being locked out of using certain items because you picked a warrior instead of a mage. You don't gotta worry about any of that. You can wield a two-handed sword, then switch to a slingshot, or use a chaos staff and a shield, then quick swap to dual-wielding daggers. As you use a certain weapon, that weapon's type level will go up, increasing your overall damage with similar weapons. So if you like swords, the more you use them, the more they'll level up and you'll progressively deal more damage with them. You can also upgrade your weapon's quality with weapon shards that you find throughout the world. Most weapons start off as flimsy, then you upgrade them to standard, then fine, and so on and so forth. You've got bows, slingshots, maces, swords, two-handers, shields, daggers, axes, hammers, wands. There's hundreds of weapons to find, each with unique art and visuals. Every piece of loot is handcrafted as well, so any multiples of gear you find will always be the same. This is where the super light RPG gear mechanics phrase I made comes into play. The only piece of gear that affects your character at all is your weapons and shield if you use one. The slots you have for your body armor, face, and headwear are all cosmetic only. There's also hundreds of these to find as well, but they only change how you look. The only real form of character stat progression in this game is your weapon level. The only other items that directly affect your character's stats is eating and potions. Certain foods and potions can give you more resilience for a certain time limit, or more luck, more health, better mining and chopping, haste for speed, things like that. You get loot and items in this game from basically doing anything. You get new stuff from exploring, opening chests, quests. Enemies have their own pool of items, weapons, crafting materials, and cooking ingredients they can drop. Mining gives you ores to smelt and sometimes gems to sell. There's different wood to get from different kinds of logs for crafting. There's a huge amount of secrets in the game, from weird chests that require special items to secret rooms and hidden doorways that are usually home to unique stuff. There's hundreds of crafting materials, cooking ingredients, sellables, weapons, cosmetics. Merchants that you find have rotating stock that refreshes every day. There's shops that sell cool helmets, shops that sell unique weapons, shops that sell seeds for farming. This game is a collector's dream. Imagine you have an armory where you can store one of every weapon, mask, clothing, and helmet. Then imagine that armory is in your pocket. That's how the collection system in this game works. You've essentially got a visual checklist of every weapon and cosmetic in the game. Found a new axe, but you don't think you'll use it? Add it to your collection. Adding things to your collections prevents it from taking up space in your inventory or your storage, but allows you to withdraw it whenever you want. The items you have yet to discover are silhouetted, which gives you an indication of just how many is left for you to find. After completing what I believe to be almost every quest available in the current game, and finding lots of kinda difficult and very well hidden secrets, I'm still somehow missing almost 60 weapons. Some of those are from past seasonal events that I missed out on, but most of them are just out there somewhere to be found. I think we've hit the main loot and item mechanic points I wanted to talk about, so now it's time for my overall opinion and thoughts on the game, most of which are directed around the items and loot because that's why I play games and that's what this channel's about. There is a lot I like about swords and magic and stuff, but there's a lot that I feel like could make this game so much more exciting as well as increase its potential replayability. Let me explain. I understand the classless system and the idea of not wanting to lock the player behind a certain set of items or a certain playstyle, and I also get not wanting players to have to equip something because it has better stats versus how it looks. But I think both of these features greatly reduce the game's replayability. The main reason people make new characters or replay games like this meaning games where you're outfitting your character with new armor and weapons, crafting stuff, leveling stuff, etc., is because that new character you make will potentially have a different play style, a different journey, a different experience than your first or your other characters. With how the game works currently, I don't see a reason to ever create another character, and I thought, well, maybe that's just not something that devs are necessarily thinking about. But when I listened to the recent hour-and-a-half long dev Q&A over on their YouTube channel, they mentioned wanting players to create new characters and wanting players to explore the world again to maybe stumble across secrets they didn't find before. To me, this is kind of contradicting. Even though the exploring in this game is top-notch and easily the best and most addicting feature the game offers, I don't understand wanting to start completely over with a new character that will be a carbon copy of my current character when I could just keep exploring with my current character in progress. No leveling system means that even if you have a friend who wants to play and they're just starting out, you don't have to create a new character to play with them. You're basically both on equal ground, save for the fact that you'll have more weapon levels than your friend who's just starting. Here's what I'm not saying. I'm not saying the devs should implement classes, thus locking players behind choices. Instead, what I think would be a cool middle ground is to create some abilities that you can find or learn while out exploring that players can use to give them a sense of building a specific character or a specific build, and giving those abilities a leveling system like weapons have. This will let players define more of a playstyle than just picking a weapon type, and give some more depth to combat, because right now combat is just swinging or shooting your weapon and dodging, that's it. There's no other combat mechanics right now. Abilities could add some much needed variation, while at the same time providing players new ways to diversify their characters from others and deepen who their character is and how they play. Now, this won't 100% solve the replayability issue for everyone, but I tried coming up with an idea that still reflects the devs' vision for the game regarding player freedom. Yes, this idea doesn't change the fact that every character you make can still use everything in the game, but if this ability feature was implemented right now and there was a good amount of ability variation, I could see myself making new characters. The reason for this is, when I play games similar to games like this, and I know there's other people out there like me who do this same thing, I start out with a character in mind, like I'm going to be a tank that can take a lot of damage and uses a huge two-handed weapon. 9 times out of 10, I stick with that and build that character throughout the whole game. Then when I want to, I don't know, make like a ranged magic character, I start again with a new character and do that. Even though you're able to use everything at all times in this game, if there was more customization like added abilities to really give my character any semblance of a specific class, I would RP the hell out of it and stick to that playstyle and make a new character when I wanted to play a different way. Moving on, the topic of clothing and headwear not having stats because the devs don't want players to have to choose stats over looking cool or looking how they want. This issue has been solved Time and time again in a plethora of other games, AAA and indie, it's called transmogrification. Long word, I know, but it basically means if you like the stats of a helmet, but you think it looks ugly, you can change the look of it to something else you've previously acquired while keeping the stats you liked. This is a simple thing that tons of games do, but I doubt it's simple to implement. I wish clothing in the game had stats like the stat increases you get from food do, +1 resilience or +2 luck, etc. They would have to be handcrafted stats because most clothing you only get once. The issue I have with getting clothing in the game now is that a lot of them come as quest rewards or secrets that you find. And in my personal opinion, it's not fun going through a long quest chain, some of which are very secretive and require you to actually think or spend a lot of time searching an area, and be rewarded with a hat that does literally nothing to help your character at all. There's so much potential here with stats on clothing, coupled with a transmogrification system that would only help the sometimes unrewarding feeling the game has. All that being said, I still have 30 hours in this game. I think it's a blast, and that's mainly because the exploration is so top-notch. Not only is this game a collector's dream, but it's also an explorer's dream. There is so many secrets in this game, many more than I originally thought. I avidly searched the main island of the game, top to bottom, around every corner, in every nook and cranny, and somehow I still missed tons of secrets. I'm talking hidden doors, events that depend on the time of day, secret buttons that do things, mysterious chests, tucked away books that tell you about other secrets, platforming puzzles that lead you to new places, underground caverns chock full of enemies and treasure. Like, there's a lot to find, and the game doesn't tell you about most of them. Almost all of them aren't even quests. You can just read a book and it tells you about something. You don't think anything of it, but lo and behold, it's an actual place you can find or an actual thing you can do. Most of these secrets are findable after some time exploring. Some of them, though, are so off the wall that I think they need a bit more guidance to get the player in the right direction. NPC dialogue is so important in this game, and you wouldn't know that because most NPC dialogue in any game is just filler dialogue that means nothing. But quests that you can't get unless you're holding a specific item when you talk to a character are kinda rough in my opinion, especially when there's so many items in the game. Most quests aren't like that, but some are very hard to decipher. For the most part though, it's all good fun. Exploring the world is super addicting, and a lot of the secrets I found were actually surprising and cool to find. And that's it for this video on swords and magic in stuff. I'm excited to jump back in and try to complete my collection of items. I'd say pick this up if you are really into item collection and exploring, because it does both of those very well. The devs have so many plans for this game, including fishing, bug catching, housing, like 5 other huge areas, weapon skills, dungeons, world events, and a long list of even more stuff. There's a lot to still come. You can jump into the early access version of Swords and Magic and Stuff on Steam for $20. I'll leave a link to the Steam page in the description, as well as a link to the most recent developer Q&A video I mentioned earlier. If you're addicted to loot in games, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and if you want to have as much fun as this guy's having, he highly recommends checking out this playlist of videos of other games that are similar to Swords and Magic and Stuff and are filled with tons of loot. Big thanks to my Patreon supporters, Kyle and Vanilla. Until next time, peace out.